One is the providing a level of nuance that we're talking as if we're talking about the same thing all the time, doctoral education, and it's not one thing, it's a lot of different things. And in terms of taking a view of plurality about our discussions, I think the unit of analysis issue is a critical issue. And looked at as a different way when we're talking about policy recommendations, there are different types of locus of control when you talk about the implementation of policy and practice. So you have certain kinds of control at the institutional level. You have other kinds of control, particularly in many of our countries. This is not true in the United States, of course, where you have some government level funding mechanisms, some evaluation mechanisms. We don't have that in the United States, but it really does introduce other possibilities for implementing policy and practice recommendations. And then you also have the role of professional organizations and other kinds of collaborations in various parts. So I'd like us to think more and more in terms of what kinds of policies we're suggesting at each level. The other point I'd like to make is this, at our university we talk about curiosity-driven research versus use-inspired research. And it occurs to me as we have this conversation here that curiosity-driven research, which is much more focused on what an individual chooses to do and wants to do, and is excited around doing, is a function of a privileged society. Only some of us can afford to do curiosity-driven research. And that brings me to the point that when we talk about points of evaluation, criteria, production of knowledge that is country-based or at least socially useful, that we should recognize that there are some areas of doctoral education and doctoral study that result in the personal good, and there are others that result in the social and economic good, and that those are reflected by various investments, by governments, by agencies, by private donors. There are lots of investments that go on, and it seems to me to be reasonable for investors to have expectations for what people do as a result of the country's investment. And it seems to me also appropriate for people who invest their own resources and their own time in doctoral activity can then exercise their own preferences for what they do later on. So I think those are useful distinctions for some of what we talk about.
I have no comments. I just want to share some information from China. I think it is related to our topic today, and you may be interested in that. Since the year 2007, there is a new project in China, very important. We call that like National Scholarship Program of sending students going abroad to study there. And each year, about 3,000 students, graduate students, can get the chance to go abroad and stay there for 1 or 2 years, and the other of them can get degree in abroad. And they are most of them are the second year or third year PhD students. And these 3,000 quotas are assigned to the elite universities in China. And I really want to share some statistic data, but I have no data now. But I want to show you the first year in my university, it's Peking University, the best one, and 300 students got the chance. They are assigned of the quotas. Don't mean our university tried to get the quotas, but these 300 quotas have been assigned to our university. And to get the scholarship, the students should sign an agreement or a contract to promise come back in the future and serve in China for a couple of years. So, and the average, I don't know, I have no idea about this scholarship in America, but in Europe, in this program, the average scholarship is about 1,000 euro every month. Okay, I think you can get some things from this project, and it is really, as far as I know, attractive to the PhD students.
I plead guilty, you see, for having raised the issue of brain drain. I think in the original draft which Margaret sent out to the task group, you see, members, she had literally closed the topic, and I raised it cannot be closed, at least in the context of India. It is very, very, you see, significant. And I would also not buy, you see, the idea of brain circulation. It apparently is a value-free concept, but very closely if you examine, there is a lot of value loadedness in that. Now, Dr. Kul, you see, mentioned about incentives, how it is working in China. But take a country like India, how far, you see, we have to go before such incentives are created for our doctorate abroad to come back and work in India. In the meantime, it is true that the government of India is taking a lot of initiative in promoting the so-called centers of excellence. And we want to catch up with the world-class universities, hope to make at least 5 into the first 50, so on and so forth. But all this money spent on the centers of excellence, it appears, seems to attract people from the regional universities into the centers of excellence, and from centers of excellence to the advanced countries of the world. In a way, there is a trajectory, you see, of this flow, which is very clearly evident. As a consequence of this, there is a lot of protest, discontentment, you see, in the country. I think I won't buy Hans, you see, point on this. It's completely an individual freedom matter, because most of these institutions are highly subsidized. People ask, can this country afford such high subsidy for a small percentage of population to be educated in sophisticated institutions whose products seem to fit right away into US, UK, Canada, etc. Why should we be doing it? It may be in the logic of the advanced countries to take them, because IIT graduates, it has been found out, it takes 18 times more, you say, investment in US to produce the type of IIT graduate that we produce in India. So it is 1:18. Now, in view of limited resources, does it really mean anything to us? Why not we spend this money on providing vocational education to a larger percentage of the population? Please keep this in mind. Only about 9% of India's cohort population, which could be in higher educational institutions, is actually in higher education institutions. We are leaving out 90%. Can we not give them better education rather than catch up with the international Jones? This is a question that is literally asked. I think we need, you see, to have an answer. I think one answer was definitely given, how, you see, we can promote this, and I am not very sure how much of it is actually practicable. As far as I am concerned, I think I look at yesterday, I had a chat with Jorge Balan, that the classic principle, Matthew principle, seems to be operating here. To whom, who has more, to who, I think it is called, to who he has more shall be given more, or something like that. It is a classic, you see, thing.
Rich get richer.
It rich gets richer. I think it is in the process. I think how to counter this through policy framework is an issue that we need to